That ceiling fan above your head might be worse than one built 100 years ago. Not because the technology disappeared, because the market changed. The motor got smaller, the blades got prettier, the numbers on the box got smarter, but the airflow got worse. And that matters because a ceiling fan has one job: move air. So how did one of the simplest machines in your house get ruined? We buy a ceiling fan the same way we buy an air conditioner, expecting it to drop the reading on the wall thermostat, but it cannot. A fan does not cool the room, it cools you. ASHRAE, Standard 55, classifies air movement as a comfort variable, not a temperature reducer. When blades spin, they don't lower the room's thermal energy. Instead, they drive air across your skin to accelerate convection and sweat evaporation, thinning the insulating thermal boundary layer that naturally wraps your body. In a real room, this mechanical breeze can create a perceived cooling effect of up to 7 degrees Fahrenheit, even as the thermometer stays exactly the same. The common mistake is judging a fan by how cold it makes a room, rather than how fast it moves air over skin. And that mismatch is where the modern engineering went wrong. Useful airflow relies on 3 physical elements working in sync: motor torque, blade pitch, and diameter. Torque is the mechanical muscle. It dictates whether the motor can maintain steady speed when fighting heavy air resistance. Then comes blade pitch, or the angle of attack. A steep pitch of 12 to 15 degrees bites the air, forcing a column of wind directly downward onto your skin. If the pitch is too shallow, the blades simply slice through the room with zero displacement. Diameter scales this effect. A larger sweep area captures vastly more air per rotation, distributing the breeze wider. But raw rotational speed is a deceptive metric. When a manufacturer uses thin, lightweight blade arms, these components flex under aerodynamic load. This structural bending flattens the pitch, causing the blades to slip through the air instead of driving it forward. You end up with a visual illusion of performance. The blades blur, the motor hums, but the air around you remains stagnant. A fan can spin fast and still feel weak. Many ceiling fans from the late 20th century were built like heavy appliances rather than living room accessories. They relied on heavy cast iron stack motors, often called XLP types, packed with thick steel laminations and roughly 150 grams of heavy copper windings in the stator. This substantial material mass produced immense low-end torque. Because these motors had muscle to spare, they easily drove heavy, rigid, solid hardwood or metal blades without slowing down under aerodynamic drag. Strong cast iron blade arms held these blades at a steep, unyielding pitch, completely preventing the structural flexing that flattens out modern alternatives. High-quality ball bearings or sealed oil bath systems kept the entire assembly rotating with absolute stability, running quietly and consistently for decades. Now, not every vintage fan was a masterpiece, but many classic designs were optimized directly for raw air velocity. They operated on a fundamental truth: moving air is not the same as looking like it moves air. In 1955, fewer than 2% of American homes had AIR conditioning. By 1980, that number climbed past 50%, on its way to over 80% by the early 1990s. This rapid, massive adoption changed the entire purpose of the ceiling fan. It was no longer a survival appliance for hot summer nights, but a supplementary visual accessory to central air. Because fans became optional comfort devices, manufacturers had to find new ways to sell them. They stopped competing on raw mechanical performance and started competing on pure showroom appeal, visual aesthetics, and low price. Large big-box retailers filled their aisles with decorative designs that looked premium but cost very little to manufacture overseas. When customers buy with their eyes first, the expensive, invisible engineering components hidden inside the motor housing become the first things to get cut. This transition was gradual, which is why it went largely unnoticed in most American homes. But it redirected the entire market. Once a machine becomes decoration, the engineering starts losing. Modern mass-market fans hide structural compromises behind glossy finishes. Inside the housing, manufacturers replace heavy, cast-iron stack motors with thin, direct-drive pancake motors. These downsized power plants contain up to 40% less copper winding, leaving almost no torque headroom to fight air resistance. To keep these weak motors from stalling, designers must flatten the blade pitch to a shallow 11 or 12 degrees. When you pair this weak torque with thin, ornamental blade arms, the metal actually flexes under aerodynamic load, flattening the pitch even further as it spins. Instead of driving a column of air downward, the blades slice helplessly through the room. Down below, cheap sleeve bearings replace high-quality ball bearings, introducing friction, axis misalignment, and a constant wobble. This unstable, lightweight assembly shakes, converting electrical power into mechanical noise and vibration rather than a cooling breeze. It is a systematic cascade of cost-saving trade-offs. The fan still looks premium until you turn it on. Look closely at the blades themselves. Heavily sculpted, leaf-shaped, or deeply tapered designs look modern and aerodynamic, but they are an engineering illusion. Wind tunnel testing shows that traditional straight planform blades deliver a 21% increase in airflow and a 54% increase in efficiency compared to these decorative shapes, all while consuming 22% less power. When a manufacturer sculpts a blade to look like a palm leaf or a carved wave, the aspect ratio drops. This creates severe tip vortices, where air rolls off the edges in turbulent swirls rather than being pushed downward in a clean, solid column. To work properly, blade pitch, diameter, and motor strength must be balanced as a single system. A decorative blade ruins this geometry, turning a functional machine into a kinetic sculpture. The prettiest fan in the showroom might be the weakest fan in your house. The primary number on a fan's box is CFM, or cubic feet per minute. It measures the total volume of air displaced, but velocity is not the same as volume. CFM tells you how much air leaves the blades, but it ignores how that air behaves in a real room. Your actual comfort depends on ceiling height, room geometry, blade pitch, and speed settings. A large fan might record a high CFM rating in a lab by moving a massive, slow-moving cloud of air. But in your living room, that weak breeze will dissipate long before it reaches your skin to thin your thermal boundary layer. The number on the box might be true and still not tell you what you need to know. To find a fan that actually cools, ignore the decorative marketing and look at the engineering basics. First, check the motor. You need enough torque and motor weight to drive the blades without stalling under air resistance. Next, look for a steep blade pitch, ideally between 12 and 15 degrees, paired with heavy, rigid blade arms. If the arms are thin metal or plastic, they will flex, flatten the pitch, and ruin performance. Pay attention to how it handles low and medium speeds. A high-quality fan moves a distinct, comfortable breeze at these lower settings without humming or wobbling. Quiet operation is the ultimate sign of balanced construction and durable internal bearings. Good engineering does not hide behind flashy smart features. It prioritizes raw, reliable physical performance where you actually live. Today, we trade raw performance for quiet efficiency and aesthetic appeal. When modern design sacrifices function for form, we lose the simple utility of things that just work. At Gearcrux, we explore the hidden physics of daily life. Subscribe for more deep dives into everyday engineering.